And if the answer to that, if your answer is money, you're not going to get very far, right? But if your answer is building communities, creating quality experience for people, supporting mental health through trail building, right? And the positive effects it has.
Welcome to Trail Effect. I am your host, Josh Blum. Trail Effect is a show that dives into the stories behind trails, the communities that embrace trails, and the people who rely on trails as a way of life. The goal of this show is to turn the stories you will hear from our guests into useful knowledge that can be applied to your community while providing some entertaining and inspirational content. Guests on Trail Effect include trail builders, board members, community leaders, volunteers, and regular people who really enjoy trails. For episode 202, we have Miles Ramsey, the creative director for 52Eighty Creative. Miles has been working with the PTBA, American Trails, along with others in the trail space to improve the marketing game on the outdoor infrastructure we all love to build and use. Miles is also the person behind the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp, which was created as a way to bring new creative ideas to the outdoor recreation and trail world. The Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp will be hosted in a virtual format, so traveling to and attending this conference will not be an issue. Miles has brought together more than 25 professionals who work in the outdoor space as speakers at the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp. This conversation also kicks off a partnership that Miles and myself have formed to help co-promote both the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp and the Trail EAffect Podcast. Trail One Components, exceptionally crafted mountain bike components that support great trails. I personally run the Crockett Carbon Bars, the American-made Rockville stem, and the Hell's Gate grips on both my Trail Light and Enduro bikes. These parts are the real deal, lightweight, bomb-proof, and comfortable for my old hands and wrists. Trail One goes beyond great gear. Every component is named after a real trail, and a portion of every purchase goes directly back into trails. So when you upgrade your bike, you are also giving back to trails. When you purchase Trail One components using the affiliate link on the Trail EAffect website or in the show notes, you are not just supporting your favorite trails and upgrading your bike, you are also supporting this podcast. Trail One components offer a lifetime warranty along with fast and free shipping. Now on to the Trail EAffect with Miles Ramsey of 52Eighty Creative and the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp. Here we are today on Trail EAffect. I have Miles Ramsey. Miles is the creative director for 52Eighty Creative based in St. Joseph, Missouri. And this is an interesting one because Miles has what we call, or what he calls, the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp, which is an offshoot of his company, but he's partnered primarily with, as far as what I know him as, is he's partnered with the PTBA and American Trails and really kind of dove into the trail space when it comes to marketing. And so that's why we have Miles on today, and we're going to learn about the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp. And by the way, this is a partnership that Miles and I have formed. And so we're partnering up to help promote the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp because it is a very important part of what we do to help let others know what's actually happening in the outdoor spaces. How's it going today, Miles?
Hey, it's going great, Josh. Thanks for taking the time to chat. I always appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it's I love any way we can get more people aware of what we're doing.
For sure.
Is a good thing. And what you've got going on is definitely in that vein. And so let's kind of get your backstory as far as what made you create the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp. And maybe we can back up from that.
Sure.
How did you find the PTBA and American Trails to have the interest into kind of diving into this side of outdoor recreation?
Yeah. That's a great question. We'll try to be succinct with the answer here, which I have a tendency not to be. So forgive me for rambling. Here I am in my late 30s, getting ready to turn 40 next year. And about when I hit about the age 30, for some reason, I just, a switch kind of flipped within me. And I was like, I need to go hike more. I need to go ride my mountain bike more. I need to take my family camping more. I need to, buy all the kayaks and paddle boards and take them out and do that. I don't know what it is about that age 30, and maybe people get into it earlier, but I feel like I meet a lot of people that are like, that's the age where they're like, I don't know if it's like, trying to shun corporate life or whatever, the machine that we've built around us. I don't know what it is, but we all have this kind of attitude of like, let's get back into nature. So obviously that, you try to think about like your passion. Where does your passion lead you? Much like I'm sure, yours has led you to your career. I cannot build trail. I tried once. I volunteer at local trail days and stuff like that. Mostly they're like, oh, it's Miles. Just give the guy a weed whacker and make him go chop up some poison ivy. Like, don't let him build anything. That is not my forte. I've never been super good with like tools or with my hands. And so, of course, I come from a marketing background, marketing and media background. That's what I've done in my career. And so I was like, I remember when I started the company, because I had just left a corporate job. I had a corporate job working for, I'd say, a mid-level marketing agency that was based out of Washington, D.C., and that was a VP job that I had there. And so I got to work with some really big brands like, Meta. We actually had a portion of Meta's business in that job, Amazon Pharmacy, AARP, as well as a lot of other nonprofits. So I got out of that corporate job, started my own company in 2022. And I remember having the conversation with my wife, Alyssa, whenever we founded the company together. And I said, do you think I could figure out a way to like find a loophole into like, the outdoor community, and so I can go to the places I already want to go to and like get paid to do it? Do you think that that's possible? And I remember she's like, yeah, you can figure that out. And I'm like, okay, sweet. So that kind of led me down the path. And so we have a great regional trail builder here in Northwest Missouri, Nomad Trails Development. Cool guys, love the Nomad guys. You might have run into them at one of the conventions or something. But they were one of my first clients when we started the company. And it was so interesting to me just to kind of get into like the world of actual trail building and like to really discover the education a part of it, about really what goes into it. And my mind was pretty blown with that. And those guys said to me, they said, boy, you need to come down to the PTBA convention and speak specifically on branding. They felt like there was a lot of people that could benefit from that conversation. And so, I filled out a speaker form that, like the very next week. I think that's when they were accepting speakers for the Georgia conference that they did in, was that 2023, I think?
24.
Was it 24?
Yeah, we're in 25 now, so it's 24.
24, okay, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I guess it would have been a little bit after 2020. And it doesn't matter, my timeline's skewed. But filled that out and went down there and spoke and had some great response and just met a lot of really cool people. As you're well aware of, that trail community is they're very welcoming, very approachable, super down to earth. And I think I saw the need, that there's companies like what you're doing at Rock Solid, where I think you guys are super locked in on your brand and on your marketing. And there's a few more like that, but I think that there's many more that are, smaller shops, if you will, that maybe need some of that education and understanding. And so anyway, I, started to partner with PTBA on some projects, American Trails. We've done work now with, we did some brand audits here recently for Ozark Trail Association and Vermont Hudson Trails and the American Discovery Trail. And so we just kind of find ourselves in this space that we feel really, really good about. And so that kind of led to the creation of the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp. And lest I ramble further, I'll stop right here and let you have a chance to kind of get me back on track, because I feel like I'm kind of out in the ether right now.
Well, I think that's a good transition into the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp. I'd like to maybe we could dive into, before we go to the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp, maybe you have a couple specific things without calling out specific companies or anything about maybe some common themes you've seen as areas of improvement.
Yeah, for sure. In the trail industry specifically, I would dare say it's a very young industry. Do you think that's still fair to say? I mean,
very much so.
Yeah. Last, I don't know, 20, 30 years, you'd have to give me the background on that. I mean, it seems like it's obviously really boomed since COVID, which makes sense. Everybody's building a bike park now. And so it's pretty wild. And so maybe before that you had, more core companies, and now you have all the splintering off of those core companies and people, it's not dissimilar to what I did, where I'm like, I'm tired of working for these people and executing their ideas that I don't think are very good. I'm going to go execute my ideas that I also don't think are very good. So I think you have maybe that happening, that factioning, if you will. I don't think in a negative way, but it's just naturally happening. And so people more regionally focused, more locally focused. So one of the things that I see a very passionate industry, right? Everyone you meet in the trail building community, it's not a job to them. It is very much driven by their desire to create really cool stuff that they want to ride themselves. That's typically what you see. And I think that that passion is a very, very good thing. I think a lot of industries do not have that. I think they're very lacking in that. But as you can imagine, when that's what you want to do, build trail, you're probably not getting in it to also do the marketing or the branding side, to build websites, to build your brand, to capture content, all those kind of things. And so I think what I see a lot is just just undeveloped brands for these different trail builders. And I think that whenever your brand isn't locked in, and I'll specifically pick on branding because obviously that's kind of the foundation of everything you set up. When it's not locked in, I think it makes it more difficult for that company to go to a government entity or officials and say, "Hey, we're a legitimate organization that legitimately wants to do this and create this awesome thing in your community." I think that those government entities might look at the materials, the brand, or maybe the lack thereof, and go, I don't know if these people, are they insured? Do they have their stuff together? So I think that that's what I see mostly, Josh, is just undeveloped brands that maybe could be hurting people a little bit. And I think that let me back up a little bit on that. So when we think about brand, we think about foundational why. Why do you do what you do? Why do you get up every single day, especially on the hard days, and keep going forward, right? And if the answer to that, if your answer is money, you're not going to get very far, right? But if your answer is building communities, creating quality experience for people, supporting mental health through trail building, right, and the positive effects it has, well, then you already have your brand. So like when I'm talking about brand, like trail building, the communities and companies, they already have that brand foundation. They're just not showing it on the external very well, right? And so I'm kind of segueing that into how do we show externally that passion or that brand that already exists within the minds and hearts and souls, if you will, of the people that are standing behind it. So what I do see a lot of is very passionate people that maybe don't have that, that welcoming, those visuals or that messaging dialed in, or that website that's built, and you see either lack of websites or some people that have no website, or that it's, is a GoDaddy website that looks like you're going to get hacked or whatever. So it's all that. It's brand legitimacy is, I think, how I would define that. That's the biggest gap I see in the trail building world.
Right out of the gate, you said one of the things that I often joke about, which is we're like the oldest industry on the planet in terms of like trails have been a thing since the Stone Ages, right?
Right.
But we're the newest in terms of professionalization of that.
Right. Standardization. Yeah.
Yeah. And you nailed it with the fact that all these other industries, name it, whatever, especially that work in, we'll say, the recreation space that maybe parks and rec departments or government entities are used to working with, they're way ahead of us in terms of like getting their stuff dialed and making sure that when you go to said parks department, they see that you are legitimate. And we know that there are so many really good professionals in this, but like you pointed out, they're a smaller company. They probably didn't get into it because they want to do payroll, HR, all the things that come with, oh, I'm going to start a business, and you don't really like. Yeah. Obviously, you have a business. I'm not going to say, well, this podcast is technically a business. I work for a company that has that stuff that's separate from this podcast. And so I don't have to worry about the HR. I don't have to deal with some of the other stuff. But my fiance, she owns a staffing and recruiting company. She owns a small business. So we talk about all the things that you have to do with small business that maybe you didn't sign up for. Yeah.
And I hate it too. Don't get me wrong. Like I started my business, to be a branding and video creative agency. That's kind of primarily what we do. Right. So obviously it makes sense for us to pursue this industry when we're like, man, people's brands aren't dialed in. Maybe that's something that we could help with and work with some cool people that way. But I got into business to do that, not to, to do HR and not to have to figure out if I'm an S Corp or an LLC or how that affects my tax bracketing or, all the things that go along with that. Then I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do any of that. So I think that's why that's the first person I hired it's actually my sister. But she's really good with that stuff. And I was like, hey, will you come over and do this stuff so I don't have to think about any of this crap because it's draining. Yeah. But you're right. Like you get into it for the passion behind it, not to do jump through all the different hoops that you really don't want to jump through. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is, and we're going to transition into the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp now, but the good thing is your role with all this is to tell that story so people can see, what trail builders are building and what people in this outdoor industry are really working on. Because if nobody knows about it, it's not going to get the recognition that it probably deserves.
That's right.
From a use perspective, but also just from, being a great thing, whatever that thing is.
Right. That's right.
And so what's that?
Oh, sorry. Go. I was just gonna say you have some really talented builders out there, that maybe it's not as prevalent as it was, with the nomad guys when I first started working with them. Cause I remember, talking to Brett, and I was like, hey man, let's sit down, let's get in contact with each other. Let's talk about it. And he had to write down his email address, and, and it was like Nomad Trails dev at, 32 at, hotmail.com or whatever it was, on a piece of paper, and hand it to me. I'm like, all right, this is the first thing that has to go. We got to get you guys business cards. We needed to get you like a legit, domain name, So anyway, yeah, I was just going to say, like, maybe it's not as rampant, throughout the entirety of the industry, but just like basic stuff like that, how do you set up yourself to look legitimate to the people that are wanting to give you thousands and sometimes millions of dollars?
Yeah, for sure. So Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp, it started in 2024, would have been your first year of it, right?
Well, actually, no. This past February, 2025. Yeah. That was our first one. But yeah, we started the work on it in 2024. So yeah, it's a very young idea for a conference.
Let's get into maybe the thought process into why you wanted to start it and what came out of that first year. And then we'll transition into year two, which will actually be in 2026.
We started it one of the companies I worked for previously, and it was back around, I think it was right around COVID time. I think it was right after COVID. I worked for a company that had an LMS wing of the company, so learning management system, and they would do a lot of sales training with that. And they would do a lot of in-person sales training, right? So COVID happens and we all have to adapt, right? So they had this idea of like, hey, what if we did this big sales training conference virtually? And so I was part of the team that, a small part of the team, but nonetheless part of the team that helped with that initial idea for this big sales training thing. So I got to kind of see firsthand the work that goes into that. How do you line up speakers? How do you find sponsors and partners for it? And it was very successful for them. I had no intention of ever doing that, be honest with you, on my own, but I thought it was an interesting thing. And so, about mid last year, we were starting to get into the outdoor space more and starting to make more connections. And my initial thought, Josh, was like, what if we did this conference and kind of make it a loss leader, right? So like we would charge just a little bit for tickets because we can keep the price way down with the virtual conference, not really with the expectation of making a lot of money with it, but hopefully we can break even. And then hopefully that some of the people that would attend said conference would be people in, medium to large size outdoor companies that, that would attend and maybe get familiar with our company. And then that could potentially open some doors for us, right? To be able to pursue the, larger clientele in the space. Well, that didn't happen. But what happened was successful in a different way. Sometimes that happens in life where you're like, okay, this is what we're trying to do. And it doesn't work like that, but you're like, but it did this thing over here and we didn't anticipate that. And that's also pretty freaking cool. And so what we saw was a lot of small to mid-size level businesses attending this, people buying tickets. So a lot of one-man shops, right? River outfitters, professional trail building companies. We had a large contingent of government employees that, have to wear a marketing hat. A lot of smaller nonprofits that are trying to figure this stuff out from a very grassroots kind of or organic perspective with marketing. And so we ended up selling like 170 some tickets. I forget what the total count was, which totally exceeded my expectations and kind of blew my mind. Because when we first started talking about it, we're like, yeah, probably 50 to 70 people in the first year. And then we end up with triple that. And so I think it just shows you that this knowledge gap that exists between really with any industry and marketing, but I think specifically in the outdoor space, there's a large knowledge gap that people want this information. And yeah, you could go find it on YouTube. You could probably go attend another like digital marketing conference or whatever. But I think that there's something really special and really unique about the outdoor space. I don't think that the same ideas or theories that work in marketing for, say, healthcare or in the financial sector, I don't think that those have much bearing in the outdoor space. So I think you have a large group of people that need this knowledge, but that also want to hear it from people that are not just talking the talk, but walking the walk in that daily life. So every speaker at the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp is somebody that has a connection to the outdoor industry or that's working on a daily basis within that industry. And so the idea kind of went from finding leads, which we really didn't find any leads from that, and that's fine, to going, well, what if we can support in a different way, right? Because there's a lot of small businesses and organizations out there that, quite honestly, Josh, we don't have the capacity as a company to be able to help them. There's projects that we just won't take on because they're too small for us right now. But can we still provide a service to be able to help those people and help them to do a lot of stuff for themselves, right? So the idea of a boot camp versus a conference, that's why we specifically call it the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp, is that the theory is there a little bit, but mostly it's actionable things that somebody can, the very next day or the very next week, can take and do themselves. And I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit more here, because I think in this space, in this marketing space, you have people that I believe are predatory in nature. I think you have a lot of companies that are adjacent or share a Venn diagram space with my company, with 52Eighty, that they just want money and they'll get it any way they can, and they don't really have the desire to really help somebody, but they'll try to scare them with stuff. Well, you really need to do this with social media, or you have to do this with your SEO. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful at all. And to do that, you're going to have to pay us $2,000 a month. And I think a lot of those things people can do themselves. They just don't know that they can do that themselves, and they don't have that knowledge base to do it themselves. So that's something that I've just seen in my career over and over, and I'm sick of that, and I really, really hate that.
That's interesting. I guess I could see that. It's obviously, the marketing world isn't a world that I've played in. I've never marketed this podcast per se, and I don't.
Well, you're doing a great job. And
I don't market for rock solid, because it's not, we have a marketing person, but I could see where that's a thing, where you try to be like, hey, especially in today's world when there's so much talk about algorithms.
Yeah.
And driving, like I do get the emails a lot from random people saying, oh, offload all of this to us and we'll do all this for you, whatever it is. Or like I get them, I guess, weekly now, and it's like, well, I think I'm going to just continue to do it myself. I don't really.
I'll give you an example that I think is a really, really good example, and that blankets the space. I think a lot of people can relate to this. So initially, we do a very, very small amount of social media work now, because to us as a company, we're a faith-driven company, and so we have a high degree of morality that we try to abide by. And so for us, when we started the company, we were doing more social media work, managing people's social, creating content for that, doing more organic posting. And we started asking ourselves two very important questions along the way. Number one, is it a good fit for us? In other words, does the person that is paying us, do they have enough money to pay us, right? Does it help us to build our business? And if the answer to that is yes, then we go to the second question. And this is kind of our litmus test, if you will. And our second question is it good for the client? I think a lot of people aren't asking that question. Is it good for the client? And so in the world of social media, we started answering no to a lot of the accounts that we were currently working on in social media. And so we ended up firing ourselves from a lot of them because we didn't feel good about it. So what would happen a lot of times is somebody maybe has, 5,000 people that follow them on Facebook or Instagram or what have you. And so they go, okay, we want to reach these people, but we don't want to do the content creation ourselves, but we'll pay an agency, a couple grand a month to be able to create this content, to schedule it, to manage it, to put it out there, to respond to comments, all these things, and that will be worth it. That's what a lot of people think in their minds. That will be worth it. And a lot of agencies take that approach. Well, what we started to find was that, because the algorithm shifts so much, and I think what Meta or TikTok or whomever, what they really want you to do is pay them a lot of money to advertise on their platform, right? So they kind of hold your fans or your followers hostage, right? We're all familiar with this. And so a lot of times in that organic social media realm, you end up putting in the work. And again, it wasn't that we weren't putting in the hours. We were absolutely putting in the hours to be able to, collect $1,500 a month or $2,000 a month. But what we saw was all the work we were putting into that was netting 15 likes, 10 likes, 8 likes. Maybe occasionally we get a 40 or a 50. But then you have to ask yourself the further question of that, right? Which is, what's the return on the investment for the client? Like, even if you can get a few that are in that 50 to 100, are engagements really driving sales? What's really happening here? And so we started to ask ourselves those two questions. Is it good for us, and is it good for the client? and we established this is not good for the client. In other words, there's better ways that client could be using their money. They could use it for Google ads that would have a higher ROI, or they could use it, for operational costs or promotional items, or to go set up a booth somewhere, right? Something that might drive more. So we started firing ourselves from those, and we don't really take on much social media anymore unless it's, if somebody has 1 million followers or something like that. Okay, then maybe you can start impacting that on a more positive note. But I think the reason I'm getting at this is that rather than give them a fish, I want to give them a fishing pole. And that's kind of where the boot camp comes in. It's like, you can do this stuff yourself. You absolutely can. There's all sorts of efficient tools out there to help you to do these things. And you don't got to do it, 7 days a week, right? You can do it once a month for a few hours. And so trying to just train people, like, you don't got to pay an agency that kind of money. You can keep that in-house, do it yourself, find efficiencies, and then be able to apply that money elsewhere. So there you go.
Wow. That's an interesting take on all this. And I'm glad you went there.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's go into the 2026 boot camp. You have a list of speakers that is pretty long. I have the website open in another screen right here.
Yeah.
And I'm scrolling and going, there's a pretty long list here. And on top of that, there's some very reputable brands and people on that list.
Yeah.
Maybe the first question is how did you go about assembling this these A-list guests? Because I'm going to say they're A-list because you have Leave No Trace. A lot of people know of Leave No Trace. Trek Bikes. I think a few people know about Trek Bikes. I know about Trek Bikes only because I live in Wisconsin. I'm just kidding. But then you go into you got Philip Darden from Sorba. Friend of both of ours.
Yeah,
Philip is
great guy.
Great guy. And he's a marketing guy behind, before doing what he does now.
That's right.
But you also have some government agencies in there. It's not just, brands that are trying to sell you something.
Right. Yeah. And we try to be very, like when we're screening people and having those conversations, we try to be very upfront about that and be like, okay, here's the deal. Like, if you want to present at this, like we want quality information over anything else. Yes, you can have 5 minutes at the end to be able to kind of make your pitch, if you will, because obviously, they have business. A lot of them have businesses too, and they'd like to find some leads. But again, and during our vetting process, that's exactly why we're like, okay, if we're going to do this for the outdoor industry, even the people that have the 5 minutes to pitch you at the end, we want them to be professionals in the outdoor industry that do marketing, right? So if you do want to take that step and you're like, hey, I do need this, I need to, talk to this person, they know your industry pretty well. So we have a very dialed in vetting process on that. But as far as like how to find them, like, man, I don't know. It's wild. Like, I just started talking to people. And you connect with people at like the PTBA conference or ITS. We were up there at ITS, which is where I think you and I met for the first time at ITS this past year. And so you just start talking to people and you find out, again, man, I can't say enough like about the community in this space. They're the coolest people. Like, I have never known, I've worked in different sectors and different industries in my career. I've never known an industry that's so welcoming, that's so that gives of their time so freely. I just think it's so cool. And someone that knows somebody, right? So like you mentioned Leave No Trace and Mark Eller, who's a super guy, and man, he's so knowledgeable. That's somebody that Aaron from PTBA knew pretty well. I think they worked together at IMBA years ago, which apparently everyone in the world has worked at IMBA at some point, it seems like. And so, that was a great connection from her. But a lot of them are just connections. Either you make, individually at these different, conferences, or somebody that knows somebody. And again, I would just say people aren't protective of their contacts in this industry. They're happy to make an introduction, and then the people on the receiving end, like the Trek guys, like they don't have any reason to get on a call with me and talk about this, but they do, just because they're awesome people. So anyway, to answer that question, I have no idea how we had this all-star list of people. I think it's just a credit to just how awesome this industry is and the community that's been developed around it.
As a person who might be interested in attending this, what should they expect in terms of like time commitment? It's over a couple of days. It's all virtual. So we've already, disclosed the fact that you don't have to travel anywhere unless you don't have internet, and then you might have to travel to find the internet.
Yeah, no, as far as like what someone can expect. So the first year was kind of, kind of a proof of concept. And it was, we had just, it was a session every hour. That's what we did. And as that developed, of course, we were like, people are coming at this from different angles too, right? That's what we saw in like some of our post-conference surveys. You have some people that are like, this is great stuff. This is exactly what I needed as a beginner in the space. And then you had more people that are like, I'd really like some intermediate topics, some deeper dives, right? And so I think our goal this year was to listen to those post-survey results and go, okay, anyone can come at this from any walk in life and learn something that's actionable they can take with them. So it is a 2-day event. The first day is February 17th, I think. That's right. Let me go look at that and double check here real quick because I'm forgetting. Yeah, February 17th and 18th. So right after President's Day, we picked that Tuesday and Wednesday. So that first day is a pretty full day. It's an 8-hour day, right, where you have tons of concurrent sessions. The second day is a little bit shorter. We found that a lot of people, after a day and a half of being on a virtual conference, are like, all right, I got to get off of this thing. I can't do this anymore. So the second day is a shorter day. I think it's 4 or 5 hours. So basically a half day. But every single hour, I'm really proud of this. Every single hour has a different, different level, if you will. And so the way I wanted to kind of formulate this was like where you would, Rock Solid would go build a bike park for somebody, right? And all the different trails, you have green trails, you have blue trails, you have black trails, right? Sometimes you have these double diamond black trails, which I don't know how anyone rides those and doesn't die. But anyway, so that's kind of the way I wanted to build the conference. Like every hour, basically you have a beginner level topic, you have an intermediate level topic, and you have an advanced level topic. And I think that that's a really good way to structure it. As far as like benefits of it being virtual, we can keep the price down. Right now, early bird tickets are on sale, but nobody's going to pay more. I think our top price on tickets is like $199. And that's what we wanted to do. Like if you go out to a in-person conference for marketing, and they're great conferences to attend, by the way. I wouldn't slam on them. I think that's a great place to gain some knowledge. But by the end of the day, with tickets, with hotel, with food, and then having to leave what you're doing, I mean, that's, it's easily a $1,500 investment plus. So this is a way that we can share all this stuff, do it at a nominal fee, and do some good that way. And the cool thing about a virtual conference too, everything gets recorded, right? So if somebody is burnt out after the first day and they're like, I just can't take another day, or if they miss one of the concurrent sessions that they're like, I'm really interested in that, they will have this catalog forever, so they can go back anytime they want for years to come and watch any of the sessions that they missed or rewatch something. And I think that's kind of a cool benefit.
You just actually answered what my next question was going to be, which is...
Sorry.
No, that's perfect, because I didn't have to ask it because I didn't know what the answer was and I didn't know how you were going to answer it, which was, can somebody come back in after they've attended to catch?
Yeah.
And I'm going to be very honest. I'll go to, say, a PTBA conference, because those are the conferences I've been going to most recently. And there'll be 2 or 3 concurrent sessions that I want to go to that are scheduled on the same time.
Right.
And it's like, man, I really want to go. So then I have to like mentally weigh, okay, do I want to go to this one because I'm personally interested in it?
Right.
Or because I know the speaker and just want to watch him speak? Right. Or should I go to this other one because like it's actually really going to help me with my job?
Right.
So and because those are in person, and I'm not knocking in-person conferences. Because those are in person.
Yeah.
You don't get to go back and watch person that wants to talk about, we'll say GIS, for example, for those that know what GIS is. There's always someone, and you even have a GIS professional in this one, John Altshold from Chinook. Yeah.
Great guy.
So,
I think that's a cool thing about it. And like you said, you're not knocking anything in person. In-person events are great. That's where we get dinged on this one. And it's like, sorry guys, there's nothing we can do about it. But people are like, and a lot of our surveys are like, I want more networking opportunities. I'm like, well, you're not going to get them in essentially what becomes a chat room, with the speaker. Like, it's just not going to happen. So yeah, those are great things. But we want to be free with the information, right? So while we do charge for tickets, it's like, well, but we feel like there's so much value that's packed into it, something you can watch, 10 years from now and still get the same value out of. And like a lot of people, like we had people that would email, it was very sweet. They'd email and they'd be like, hey, can I share this with one of my coworkers? Is that cool? And I thought that was so funny. I'm like, dude, share it with the whole office. I don't care who you share it with. Like, what's done is done. Like, the information's out there. You might as well get it to more people. So yeah, we think that's a major benefit in what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And I'm even listening to you and thinking to myself, I need to send or suggest that my fiance go to this, who works or has a company in the staffing and marketing or staffing and in recruiting world. But I'm like, there's got to be a bunch of crossover, with that.
Probably. I think you got some free tickets, with the sponsor trade. So you might be able to extend one tour. I think that's right. I'd have to go look at that, but whatever. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to ask you at least one semi-personal question, and we'll see where that goes. And that's because I'm not letting people really get off of this show anymore without telling me what they look for in a trail community. And you live in a trail community. And so you probably have you have a good barometer of what a trail community has to offer people. Sure. But since you've been going to PTBA conferences and American Trail conferences through ITS and the PTBA conference, your knowledge of this space has probably grown quite a bit.
Absolutely, yeah.
With that, I always ask people to answer it in the most selfish way possible. Really what they look for, not what they think a community should have, but what they want to see in a community.
Okay. That's a good question. And I feel like, so I am in the Kansas City area, right? So like my closest one, and I'm sure that everyone gets sick of hearing about this, would be like Bentonville, right? That's 4-hour drive from me, straight shot down the interstate. I mean, it's hard to argue with what they built down there. I mean, that's pretty sick. Obviously, you want to have a variety of trails, a variety of levels. I look for selfishly, I look for something that's very family friendly, and by family friendly, I don't necessarily mean like different levels of bike trails. I mean, so I have 2 daughters, and of course, and I'm married, and so when we go on a trip together, and we do a lot of outdoor adventure trips. What we're looking for is not necessarily mountain biking, right? Because my girls, like I'm trying to convert them, Josh. If you have any great ideas on that, I'm willing to listen. But they ride a little bit with me, but they mostly stick to the greenways, or like my youngest daughter will do a little bit of dirt, but not, anyway, they're just not into it, but they love to hike, And so to me, it's like, is there a possibility of having some adjacent, purpose-built mountain biking trails and also some adjacent hiking trails so that my family can go and have that collective experience? Maybe I can go, get on my bike one day or one morning or whatever and go rip stuff, and then come back and meet them. I think that I think Bentonville could do a little bit better job on the hiking side of things, but like Kohler Mountain is pretty cool. And that's pretty conducive to like where my family's at. It kind of meets them in that space. Here in St. Joseph, Missouri, a lot of people, don't know about us, right? But like between St. Joe and Kansas City, man, there's hundreds of miles of single track. It's pretty crazy actually. But just in St. Joseph, which is about 45 minutes north of Kansas City, I want to say we have about 50 miles of bike trail. We have a purpose-built bike park and trails park, I should say, out at River Bluffs, and then a bunch of single track that kind of interlaces throughout the community. And it's actually a really good fit for my family. And that's where I'm coming from, is like, I can go out and I can hit some greens and blues. I don't do the blacks anymore, man. I'm too old. Like I have to like think about the ratio. I'm like, okay, what's the ratio of how extreme I want to be versus like, I got to get up in the morning and go to work. And I can't do that if I go break my clavicle. But there's a lot of really good, like just like straight up hiking trails on conservation area, things like that I can, drive 5 minutes from my house, take the kids to, and we can go have a really great hike, check out the flora and the fauna, have some cool views of the Missouri River, collect some pawpaws. Right now it's pawpaw season, So yeah, I don't know. As far as like what I look for in a trail community, I think that, a good mix of biking and hiking. Yeah.
Nice. Perfect. And what I also heard was a level of convenience. And so where I'm going with that is the more trails close to home, because that's actually been probably the number one reoccurring theme. Yeah. And like the thing that Bentonville has in spades, and it sounds like St. Joe has that also.
Yeah, it's not that hard to like, so if I had to do it again, if I was going to buy my house again, which I bought this house like 10 years ago, which was about the time that I really started to get into all this stuff, I would have bought it in a different location. Like I love our house and we have an acre of property, right? So we can do all sorts of stuff, but I'm probably a 3-mile ride from getting on any dirt. So I would have bought it in a different area. So that's not really a knock on the town. That's more of a knock on me. That happens anywhere, right? If you don't consider that aspect of it, but that is, like you said, like that's kind of the IMBA idea. And that's what they've done well in Bentonville and other communities as well. Like that's just the one I'm most familiar with. Like, I listen to your podcast and I hear you talk about Copper Harbor, and it sounds like they've done a really good job of that up there, which I still need to get up there and check out that place. But yeah.
Well, I mean, Copper Harbor is 90 people deep, so it's hard not to do a good job when you're only 2 blocks long.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, for sure.
You could drive to Copper Harbor, literally park your vehicle, and like everything is pedalable or walkable.
Yeah, but I think a lot of communities are starting to get to that, understand that model, and that's what people want, right? And so, when you start to think about like what we should do collectively as an outdoor industry, and I guess I would selfishly include myself as part of that as well. It's, how can we advocate and how can we lobby, for better connectivity for those bike and hike trails? Yeah.
Yeah. And that might be like greenways and bike paths and just, protected bike lanes. And it doesn't have to be natural surface to get to the natural surface, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Miles, is there anything else that you want to cover on the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp or anything personally that you want to cover that we didn't hit on?
No, man. Like I really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to your audience. Yeah, you have obviously a very engaged audience. Super appreciate your podcast. I try to listen whenever I can, especially on road trips. I'll throw it on. I'll listen to 7 or 8 episodes on the way to wherever we're driving to as a company. So, man, I think what you're doing is so cool. And honestly, I'm also a little bit pissed off at you because I'm like, man, why didn't I think of that? Like, what a great idea for a niche podcast. I love it. I love what you're doing. So thanks again, man. Really, really appreciate you.
Well, I should add, we didn't talk about this. You also have a podcast.
Yes.
Which we're going to talk about, but.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's on the Outdoor Marketing Bootcamp website. All you got to do, type in outdoormarketingbootcamp.com. There's a podcast link there. You're going to be on that podcast here pretty soon, which will be awesome. I think a lot of our overlap audience will get a little bit of a sneak peek into how did you come across this idea? How'd you think of this idea? So yeah, for sure. Thanks for the plug on that.
Yeah, well, for sure. And there's guests that are on the podcast already up and live that are going to be speakers at the 2026 Marketing Bootcamp.
That's right. Yeah. And so a lot of good information there. But again, kind of the desire with that is like, I'm sure there's people in nonprofits out there that they can't afford $200 to go to a conference. Well, that's kind of where the podcast comes in. Can they glean something from that? Can we help? Can we help in that capacity and serve them in that way?
For sure. Well, thank you, Miles.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please take the time to share these shows with others. Sharing these shows will help create awareness of both the guests who have taken the time to be on the show and the podcast series itself. Also, if you're new to the Trail EAffect Podcast, check out our ever-expanding library of episodes. If you listen to the Trail EAffect Podcast on Apple or Spotify, please don't forget to leave a rating and review, as this is one of the best ways to show our support for the Trail EAffect Podcast. For additional ways to help support the Trail EAffect Podcast, check out the affiliate links tab at the Trail EAffect website, where you'll find links to Kettle Mountain apparel and Trail One components. By using the affiliate links found at www.traileeffectpodcast.com, a small commission will come back to the podcast, which will help keep this thing going. This podcast has been edited and produced by Evolution Trail Services. Thank you again for listening.